everybody, welcome back to Lydia's Kitchen Talk Show. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. As you all know, I am your humble host, Miss Lydia. I am here to let you guys know about the things that are happening in the UK when it comes to asylum seeking. We will take a short break, and when we come back, I will introduce you to my friend. So hello guys, welcome back, we are back, we are live. These are my friends. On my left you have Mr. Uto, and on my right you have Mr. James. I will let them introduce yourself and the organization and what they do for asylum seekers in the UK. So over to you.
Hi everybody, my name is Otto. I'm a member of a few organisations in Sheffield, but mostly I'm a member of SIMAG, which is South Yorkshire Migrant and Asylum Action Group. I'm also a member of Sheffield Against Asylum Evictions, and I'm a member with James, and I guess James can probably introduce that group a bit more.
Yeah, hey, so yeah, my name's James, and as I said, I'm a part of Sheffield Against Asylum Evictions, which is like a recently founded group that's obviously looking to battle against evictions, which set up about 3-4 months ago. Yeah, I've also done bits with SIMAG as well. So that's cool.
Thank you so much. So I will be asking you guys some few questions. What is an asylum seeker?
An asylum seeker is somebody who is trying to actively get refugee status. And to be a refugee, you have to kind of fit the definition of what is defined in it was in the 1951 Geneva Convention, and that is to be somebody who has a well-founded fear of persecution because of his or her race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion. And so when you're an asylum seeker, you're essentially trying to prove to the country where you're seeking asylum that you have this well-founded fear of persecution. And it gets a lot more complicated than that. Like, this is just like a very brief kind of understanding of it. Like, once you come to the UK, for example, you have multiple interview stages, multiple ways in which you try and prove that you're an asylum seeker, refugee, throughout this asylum seeker process. And this process can take anywhere from around 6 months to 10, 15 years.
Thank you so much. Mr. James, do you have any contribution on that?
Well, I guess in terms of that, I remember when I was at university, and it was only until our third year that we had any modules that actually covered the asylum system. And so it was only really until then that I actually was beginning to learn about some of these differences and legal definitions. And I think a large part of that is because our media in the UK purposely tries to blur the lines between things, whether that be asylum seeker, refugees, illegal immigrants, illegal asylum seekers, which that technically doesn't even exist. So yeah, I think it was thanks to university and that module in my third year that I learned about this.
Thank you so much, guys. I want you guys to talk a little bit about seeking asylum in the UK.
Cool. Yeah, so I think one thing to say before we actually start talking about the situation in the UK, and something that I like to emphasize before talking about the conditions, is that of the 26 million refugees that are worldwide, 85% of all refugees are in the global south, and the majority of refugees are being hosted in countries that are often neighbours to where they've come from. So, for example, countries such as Turkey have the most refugees in the world, and that is partly because a lot of people are coming to wanting to get to Europe, and they travel through Turkey to get there. But it's also because they border Syria, they're close to Iran, they're close to Palestine and other countries where there are a lot of refugees coming from those countries. And so I think it's really important to think about, before we go into the discussion about the UK, the fact that the UK takes a huge minority of a tiny number of refugees in comparison to the rest of the world. Germany is the only European country that actually is even in the top 10 of countries that are hosting refugees, when they took around 1 million refugees in 2016. And I think that's really important because the kind of language around refugees, and especially in the media in the UK, is this idea that there are that we're overrun with irregular migrants, we're overrun with migrants in general. And I think it's really important to say that asylum seekers there are only 61,000 asylum seekers in the UK, and that's less than 0.001% of our population, and yet they have so much media attention and so much scapegoating. So then moving into kind of a discussion about the conditions for asylum seekers in the UK, we have this since kind of since New Labour and the late 90s, early noughties, we've been bringing in a practice of deterrent kind of policy around for asylum seekers, and so this is falls along the line of logic of push and pull factors. This idea that people come to the UK because of our benefit system, because of our healthcare system, because of education, and really that is just not evidenced. But irregardless of that, like, governments have brought in a lot of policies to try and dissuade people from coming to the UK. And so what that means is it comes in many different forms, and we'll get on to like maybe some more, and I'm assuming in this channel we'll go into some more specifics around that. But the kind of like the big main headlines are that from 2002 there have been restrictions on work, so asylum seekers are unable to work. They have to live off government support. And that support is set at a really low rate of £39.63 a week. And that is actually set at poverty level, essentially, at completely subsistence level. And then another issue that I think we're going to talk about potentially in a future video is issues around housing and the conditions for asylum seekers in regards to housing. And one of the main things is that asylum seekers have no choice with their housing. They're dispersed. Since 1999, they've been carrying out these forced dispersals.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. James, do you have any contribution on that?
Well, I guess I would just also say that having worked with some friends around asylum seekers across Europe, I think it is quite interesting that, you know, it's a well-known thing in some of those countries. Some of my friends from Germany, from Italy and stuff, that the UK is sort of known on the European scale to not take many asylum seekers and refugees. And I mean, as you mentioned, Germany take a lot more. And David Cameron, I seem to remember, I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but he he said that he was going to take, I can't remember when it was the Syrian refugee, the height of sort of Syrian refugee crisis, maybe in the mid sort of 2010s, and it was an extremely small number that he promised that he would take, and then he didn't even end up taking the amount that he promised he would anyway. So we're quite well known for, as a country, for not sort of delivering on promises and not taking in many people at all, not doing our fair share.
Thank you so much. We do really appreciate your contribution. Mr. James, this question goes to you. When did you first start to know about asylum?
So as I mentioned, I guess it was in my third year, which is when we had a module based on asylum. So I chose that because it's something that was really relevant at the time. I guess it might have been, I don't know what year, but maybe about 2015, give or take. And yeah, it was the height of the Syrian refugee crisis, so-called. And basically, I found the module really interesting. I found that the lectures that I had for it were actually really engaging, and also one thing that was really important to me is that it was one of the only modules at university where they actually brought in people from the community, whether that they brought in people who were asylum seekers that worked with groups, SIMAG being the group that actually came in, and also somebody from City of Sanctuary who was an asylum seeker as well and worked with them. And I thought that was the first time I felt at university where they'd made that kind of community engagement, which was something that I was really disappointed with in terms of my overall university experience and my course. I didn't think they made enough effort on that front. But since then, I've been able to learn so much about sort of migrant solidarity and what goes on in Sheffield. So I found that quite inspiring, and it really made me sort of want to get involved and do more.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So this question go back to you. What makes you get involved in supporting asylum seekers?
I mean, I guess I began to learn about the hostile environment. I don't know when exactly that was. It 2014 that it started up. It's sort of about then.
The hostile environment.
Yeah.
20. Well, I mean,
a bit earlier than that.
they-
I mean, yeah. In
2012
terms of the
was when
official
they
sort of
Yeah,
Theresa May
2012.
thing. Yeah, and you'd always hear bits and bobs sort of in the news and in the media. And as I say, when I began to learn that there was actually a lot going on in Sheffield to sort of fight back against this, that sort of got me interested in getting involved a bit. But I kind of just started, when I left university, I worked briefly at the UMIC Centre, which is like a sports centre that sort of does a lot of work with asylum seekers as well as with locals around the area, a lot with children and stuff like that. And I was part of a project that was trying to help improve integration of asylum seekers and immigrants in the local area, but using football as the vehicle for that. But basically, through just starting with that, I also joined a football team called Mount Pleasant, and they happened to do some work sort of with migrant solidarity. I learnt about STAR, which is Student Action for Refugees, and I managed to get involved in lots of different groups. And it kind of, since I left university, it's kind of I don't know, exponentially sort of rose the amount of people I've kind of worked with and met in Sheffield. That's how I met SciMag, was through those types of groups. And it's nice that in Sheffield the circles are quite interlinked. There's a lot of overlap. People do lots of different work together, so it's quite easy to then find out about all the different groups that are doing stuff.
Do you have any additional thing?
Yeah, I think I probably had relatively similar experience to James. I think I was involved in some kind of forms of migrant solidarity stuff when I was a bit younger, but it wasn't like very like targeted, and I didn't really know what I was doing. But I think one thing that I would like to say is that like as like I think when I first started doing stuff, it felt like it was really difficult to know where you could help and what you could do to help. And actually, like very quickly, you realise there are lots of groups doing really good work, and they're like really welcoming, and they want people to get involved. And so, like, if ever you kind of like, even if you can only feel like you can only put in like an hour a week or even less than that, there are always groups who can use you in like different ways and like understand. Like for us, we maybe put in like quite a few hours a week, and we're happy to do that. But not everyone has that time, and not everyone needs to do that. And so there are loads of different groups and loads of different ways that you can get involved in like various forms of migrant justice. And I think it's something that people are intimidated by, but they shouldn't be, because actually the groups are really welcoming and will kind of
Thank you so much. We will take a break and we will be right back. So hello guys, we are right back. So I will leave you guys to have a little bit of debate between two of you, and let's go.
Cool. I don't know if me and James disagree on much, so we're going to debate. More of a discussion. We just kind of thought that as we talked a little bit about the conditions that have faced asylum seekers in the UK, it would be kind of important to understand how these conditions get accepted by the general population, and a huge part of that is due to the media and political representations of asylum seekers. So we just kind of want to talk about like the myths that are involved and the ways that asylum seekers get represented, and how this allows for these like inhumane conditions to be accepted by like the electorate and the general population.
Yeah, basically on my module at university that I studied, one of the books we read was I think called Bad News for Migrants, and it was one of the things that we covered. And yeah, that basically looked at how the media, and that can include television, newspapers, kind of blurred the language sort of around legal definitions of asylum seekers, refugees and stuff. And not just even in the last few years, this is over the last few decades really. And basically it looked at how they use terms like bogus asylum seeker, illegal asylum seeker, and in terms of international law and stuff, you have your right to apply for asylum and stuff, so it's impossible to be an illegal asylum seeker. But obviously the newspapers have been pushing this for a long time, and that's obviously going to reach the consciousness of the public and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think this has been happening definitely explicitly since the days of New Labour, and it was for sure, and this is within political discourse, within media discourse, it's been happening for decades and decades. But we really saw a turn within politics where these kind of willingness to confuse the terms of bogus asylum seeker and genuine asylum seeker and stuff really was started in times of New Labour, but has continued and proliferated during the last kind of 10 years of Tory government. And I think whereas you can kind of see in some ways you can put down some of this to lack of understanding of some kind of ignorance around the issues. Once these kind of language of illegal and bogus is being used by Home Secretaries, we've seen Priti Patel using it, Theresa May, and lots of other kind of Home Secretaries before them. You can see that they're really using this language for a reason. They're using it as a way to justify their policies, to justify the targeting that they have. And I think some interesting studies have been done within the civil service where they've looked at how actually there's a lack of willingness to actually show the evidence against certain policies. For example, the deterrent policy is unevidenced. And yet, because that is such a cornerstone of our kind of immigration system, there's actually evidence to show that civil servants will not show that to acting Home Secretaries, because they know that Home Secretary will just they don't want to hear it, they don't want to see that. I think another thing that's really important to also discuss, alongside the kind of legal muddying of the waters that James was talking about, is also the language that is extremely dehumanizing that's used within politics and media. You see people like David Cameron describing asylum seekers as a swarm. You see Nigel Farage talking about using language such as barbarians and invasion and these kind of ideas. They're trying to present asylum seekers and people coming to this country as a dangerous threat to our way of life.
Yeah, I guess I'd add Katie Hopkins to that, who used to have a massive platform and was, she used cockroaches, I think was the term.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, dehumanizing language towards minority groups goes back, throughout history, but it's such a common tactic and it's so pervasive in terms of how it enters our society and enters the consciousness of the public.
Thank you guys so much. Oh, this is wonderful. Thank you guys so much. Can you guys believe we can just talk about this topic or like go on and on and on and on? Man, we have come to the end of this beautiful session for today. Wow. If you haven't subscribed to Lydia's Kitchen Talk Show, what are you waiting for? The kind of gist we are about to bring to you guys. Everything that you need to know about UK immigration and asylum life. The housing, the money, how they treat asylum seekers. Some people say it's hostile. We can't judge, but with time, I will be giving you guys my own experience. But for now, you guys need to hurry up. Share this video. Share it. Let everybody come because this is our space. Mind the space, as they say in UK. So please, guys, we have to be leaving you guys for now. Do not forget to turn up your notification bell because every time we upload a new video, you will be the first to watch. Being an asylum seeker is not a crime. It's just stages people have to go through. If you are living in Europe, you have any story, you want to share your own idea of asylum life in Europe, I will be leaving my number. Do not forget to inbox us, tell us your story, and we will be here to say it as it is. To have a lovely day and stay blessed. Bye bye everybody.